gun moves using the event that they are admitted to have triggered. So they're going on like nothing happened. But so it's not heresy to know that governments have staged events against their own people as a pretext to get control. That is in the Encyclopedia Britannica. That is a known fact. We have WikiLeaks 3 years ago releasing Army manuals in the U.S. where they train Army captains and special ops how to stage a false flag. You know, if you're in a third world area and overwhelmed, stage a massacre and then blame it on the enemy. That'll force multiply the people to help you. And the argument here is an ancient 3,000-year-old Persian gambit, of course, in chess to sacrifice a pawn or another piece in an opening move to make your enemy miscalculate and draw them in, a sacrifice. That's why the military does this, because they say, well, if we send in 100 troops, that'll draw the enemy out. The 100 troops will be killed, but then we'll see the enemy's strength. We can then cut them off at a pincer, saving 10,000 troops. It's a cold-blooded calculation, so that's why they do this. They see Islam as a threat. They want to take over the oil and resources. They want to invade these countries, so of course they're going to stage some events. They call it a justifiable sacrifice. That's the sick mindset. But to say we're conspiracy theorists or we're crazy because we know governments admittedly do this, it doesn't hold water.
That's right, Alex. And in times, you mentioned George Orwell there, and in times of universal deceit, telling the truth becomes a revolutionary act, I'm afraid.
It does. So continuing now, you're challenging all of this, but what about the fact that you're an analyst and they're not letting you give your terror threat prognosis? That also sounds like a national security issue, that they're not letting you get your report out about who the terrorists are.
Well, that's right. I offered to provide them a comprehensive report, not just this strategic threat assessment matrix was rather crude and simplistic, and I believe it's gimmicky. It's a distraction, Alex. And I'm afraid that I think all the principal intelligence analysts in each of the 43 police forces in England and Wales, it's they that want sacking. If they don't stand up and say this is no good, it's a massive distraction from actually doing intelligence analysis. And I'm afraid, Alex, intelligence analyst isn't. If you're an intelligence analyst, you're not a spin doctor. And I'm afraid I wasn't prepared to be a spin doctor in this instance. And I just wish that others would stand up and look outside now. And I hope by doing this that other analysts news will break to other analysts that they've got to do this. And we have to have a pure role and tell it as it is without causing fear or favour.
Well, Tony, that's a great point you raise. We know in England now, the former head of MI6 has admitted it. We know the White House and Downing Street memos show it. It's confirmed that Tony Blair and George Bush got together in 10 Downing Street and at the White House on 2 occasions and ordered their intelligence chiefs to fix intelligence around weapons of mass destruction, including nuclear, in Iraq. Tony Blair responded with the 45-minute speech. Powell responded with the anthrax vial. And they did all of this. And now we know they went in to MI6 and to the CIA and ordered the analysts to issue false reports. Both countries' analysts, including Dr. David Kelly, refused. And so, of course, they killed Kelly. And now we know that they created the Office of Special Plans, fake analysts, to create fake reports. So this is a major scandal that they're telling you to basically fix intelligence analysis for them. I think that's even bigger than, quote, them saying, we're going after you for your beliefs. Or, I mean, do you see where I'm going with this?
Absolutely. And I wasn't going to bow down to their sacred cows. I wasn't going to bow down to their Caesar, because I serve something greater than that, and that's my God. And my conscience simply wouldn't allow me to go along with this monstrous lie, and I just couldn't do it. And that's what led me to get the sack. And I'm afraid if they're actually exerting that kind of pressure on other analysts, well, if they want to be have a conscience, then they're going to have to get the sack, unless this is blown up. And I feel as though there's a chink here in the armour, Alex. I think the British police force, they can be put under pressure here if we can just get this publicised more. And, it takes one. I've done it. Let's, other police, to put people in the police service And, they could start to come out now. And that's what I really do hope will happen.
Well, they better, because the corrupt banks that run England and the U.S. and Europe are going to continue to stage terror attacks if we don't. Now continuing here, looking at 7/7, looking at 9/11, look at Sybil Edmonds. She's an FBI translator translating NSA communiques. She testifies in the 9/11 Commission in closed doors that she heard the leaders of al-Qaeda on the phone with the CIA being directed in the year leading up to the day of 9/11 in sex slaves, weapons, drugs, laundered cash. Of course, we know al-Qaeda was created by our own government, so that makes sense. And she tries to bring that to her supervisors and is told to shut up. So there's not an analyst. There's somebody listening to all of this going on, and there's hundreds and hundreds of other people who have seen and witnessed the same thing. Let's look at 7/7 first. Of course, the 7/7 bombings in London, for those that don't remember, used to sell the Iraq war and more. Break down the big blaring issues with that, sir.
Right, okay. Well, 7th of July 2005, and London bombings went off, and there were 3 underground stations and a bomb that went off on Tavistock Square. Few things that happened, and 52 people were killed, plus 4 others, which was the alleged suicide bombers. Now, there was no inquiry into who committed the crimes. Tony Blair immediately said that there would be an inquiry would be a ludicrous diversion. That's an utter disgrace. And instead, we've been told who is guilty, and we've had a diversionary inquiry later down the line just about the intelligence failures, where the real agenda is simply to conceal the truth, as you say, just as it was in the Hutton inquiry for Dr. David Kelly. Now, there was a poor quality and anonymous official version of the London bombings, and that's deeply suspicious and unacceptable. And add to that, there's never been the proper inquiry, so you've got big problems there, Alex. And for the government to give us one narrative of 7/7 without allowing all the other competing narratives to be officially heard in the process, it's simply insulting. It's a disgrace. Now, a key thing here is the mock terror exercise that occurred. Now, this is fantastic, this. Peter Power, advisor consultant, when all the bombs go off, shortly afterwards, we're talking an hour or so after the bombs have gone off, this guy, Peter Power, from Advisor Consultants, goes on TV and announces this. He says that this is amazing. The terror attack, the terror training drill that we are into at the moment, where there's 1,000 staff involved, was simulating bombs going off at the exact same stations and locations as actually happened. Now, in statistical terms, Alex, it's as certain can be that a drill exercise matching the exact same locations and dates of the actual bombs, that could not have occurred by mere coincidence. Now, was that investigated? No. Should it have been? Well, you're damn right it should.
And by the way, we're going to break. We got 2 more segments.
Offers the insight that's needed to find out really what happened. And it's a disgrace that it...
All right, stay there, sir. We got to go to break, and we're going to come back and let you finish on that. We got one little segment in that first 5 minutes of the hour, and we got guests coming in. We'll definitely have to have you back up in the future just to go over your own research. But absolutely, they ran drills on 9/11. Oklahoma City, they always run a drill to cover the real attack. You know, a lot of people engage in delusional, magical thinking. They think that you can just decide there aren't false flag terror attacks. I mean, you read the history of France and England fighting with each other and others. They were constantly doing it. Constantly doing dirty tricks against each other. Blowing up an ammo dump and then blaming it on the other. This is war. The issue is war is now being used against us domestically by our own governments. That's an act of war, shipping tens of thousands of firearms into Mexico, then blame it on the Second Amendment. And it's admitted the government did that. Okay, people, we need to grow up or they're going to keep using this tool. So this is a short 5-minute segment. Sorry, we got one more little 5-minute segment, and we'll have to have you back. But continuing, talking to Tony Farrell, who was in his police department and also worked in the federal government as a top terror analyst, ran into all this false flag history and information. You'd gotten into the drills of 7/7 with the exact same bus, exact same place, exact same time, exact same trains, exact same place, exact same time. Actuaries have been done. It's in the thousands of trictillions. That's, billions of times all the sand grains in the world. It's nearing infinity. I mean, it's the equivalent of finding a unicorn, a leprechaun, and Santa Claus in your backyard jumping rope. It doesn't exist. But please continue.
Yeah, the spineless, anonymous Home Office official version, that had flaws in it that subsequently the government had to admit that there were lies. The 740 ghost train that went from London to St Pancras that the Patsies were supposed to be on, but they didn't catch because the train never ran, and that was only an independent researcher that found that out later on and shamed the government. They had to change it, but they couldn't get the story to fit. So that whole sort of patch of the report is ludicrous.
And, of course, why run the drill? Well, you've got some young Arab gentlemen who are working, with the government, who are teachers and things. They're taking part in a patriotic anti-terror drill. Uh-oh, something's going to happen.
Yeah. And then, Alex, I'm afraid at least one or two of those, patsies were taken out and assassinated at Canary Wharf is the most plausible explanation. I certainly don't believe they were on the trains and the military style explosives on the trains. A far more plausible explanation than the so-called explosions on in the backpackages that they self-detonated themselves in wonderful synchrony. So all of that seems totally ludicrous. The profiles of these bombers, the personification of these people was not such that these were going to commit suicide. And if they've got videos that purport that they were, I actually believe that was part of a training drill. So there's so many things wrong with it. And I think we look at the G8 summit on the day at Glen Eagles, and what on earth was Tony Blair doing a few hours later, coming on record when the police had announced that we don't know who's done this yet, but Tony Blair does. He knows this is being done in the name of Islam. Now, I think that is a disgrace. I think that is unacceptable. But I wish just good people in the UK would actually see it, because I think they're blind.
Well, it gets worse. At the Tavistock Institute bus bombing, it turns out there were people with fake bandages on who were seen before and then after with them off, covering their whole faces, being bandaged up. This was off the charts, insane and openly staged. And the reason they had to admit they were doing drills is because people who were part of the drill then start questioning what happened, but by seeing an authority figure admit the drill, then they think it's all out in the open. That's why Larry Silverstein admits they blew up Building 7. We'll be right back. Well, we got Matthew Medina and Cody Hess, great political activist with a lot of news joining us coming up the next segment. They've also brought a friend along, Miss French. But we're going to be talking more in the future with Tony Farrell. He's got a website going up soon. He's going to be publishing stuff as an open source analyst for the people. We also need to support him in what he's doing there in Airstrip 1. Tony, you were making the point during the break to myself. You've been out for a week now, or 5-6 days, and no mainstream media in England. You would think this would be newsworthy, that a head analyst at a police department, a guy who was an analyst for the central government, the Home Office, comes out with this, and that they're staying quiet. They don't want folks to look into this.
On a lot of truth websites all over the world, in a remarkably short space of time, following the interview I did on richplanet.com. And I'd point out, Alex, there's people don't have to take my word for it. They can Google, they can search the web, and there's some fantastic analysis. The Big Picture 7/7, The Ripple Effect, Seeds of Deconstruction. All these documentaries are so superior to the government versions, and people need to make their own mind up. They need to start looking, because there's utterly compelling evidence that makes the government version ludicrous. And we've had a recent inquiry, Alex, as you know, to look at intelligence failures, Lady Justice Hallett. And don't take my analysis, I've not gone into too much detail on that, but there's a chap called Nick Colostrum who stayed every day at the inquiry and has done detailed analysis that completely discredits the whole of that inquiry. And that needs to be seen and needs to be heard, because that